Wadcutter ammunition. Usually it's something that's in 38 Special, 44 Special, and the like. And basically all it is a cylindrical bullet that's shaped kind of like a soup can, pushed all the way deep down into the case. And what that does is it gives you a lot of accuracy because it's usually a hollow base, and that hollow base will expand a little bit to seal to the bore and give you great accuracy. And it also punches a nice clean hole through paper, so it's very useful at target shooting. But there's often been a lot of debate whether this type of ammunition can be used for self-defense. And one of the main points that we talk about here when it comes to the wadcutter is inverted wadcutters, backwards wadcutters. All you're doing is taking that wadcutter and you're seating it backwards so that that hollow base becomes a big hollow point. And that's been a traditional self-defense load for a long time. We don't see it much anymore, but we're going to see what it does today versus water jugs and my baloney pack. And I also want to see what kind of velocity we're getting, and the question of what kind of accuracy we're going to get at long range will come into play. So we're going to find out what kind of accuracy we're going to get at like 25 yards. Test gun is the Smith & Wesson 686 with a 4-inch barrel. The way these are loaded, there probably wouldn't be much difference between that barrel length and a snub nose barrel, but today we're going to use the 4-inch, and let's get started with the test. All right, let's see what we get for velocity with the traditionally seated forward-facing wad cutters. 148 grain wad cutters. 771. 818. 770. 796. 790. 815. Alright, let's see how the backwards loaded wad cutters compare for velocity and energy. Right, here's the backwards loaded wad cutters. Let's see what kind of velocity we're getting. 762. 780. 791. 773. 776. 796. Alright, pretty close in velocity. One note to be made is there's a little bit more gunpowder in the backwards loader because they're seated out a little bit differently than the forward basing. There's not a hollow base, so I had to increase the amount of gunpowder to get comparable velocities. So they're very comparable. So let's see what happens when we hit the baloney pack. And if you don't know, it's 4 layers of denim, 1 3/4 inches of baloney, and 3/8 inch particle board, followed by 6 water jugs and a blanket backstop. We'll see what we get with forward facing versus backwards facing. So let's start with the forward facing first. All right, time to see what happens to the baloney pack and the water jugs with a forward facing traditionally seated wad cutter. Let's see what we get. All right, this is pretty impressive. Here's the particle board. Big, huge hole actually through the front. Big exit hole through the back that's going to simulate like sternum bone. Through the front here, and we actually got substantial damage. It cut a lot of that meat out, and actually quite a bit of substantial damage here. More so than I've seen with even a lot of 38 Special hollow point ammunition. So let's see what we got in water jugs. Jug 1, there's just a huge hole through it. Big, huge impact point here. Jug 2, clean through. With impact on jug 3. And out the back of jug 3, we have caught the bullet sticking out. And here is the forward facing. Pretty good expansion. That's better than I see with even a lot of hollow point ammunition. And this is not the backwards facing yet. We still had expansion. That's pretty impressive. Here's the back, a hollow base. So let's see how the backwards loaded compares to the forward facing. This should be interesting. All right, here's the backwards facing wad cutter. Let's see what we get with the backwards facing 148 grain wad cutter. All right. Entrance hole on the, this is behind the meat here. Big. It's even larger than the forward facing. And here's the impact point on the bologna. Massive damage. Much more damage. Much more on the back with the hollow base going forward. Substantially more. So let's see what we got in the water jug. The bullet is in jug 1. Only 1. Yeah, that could be considered expansion, I would say. However, the penetration was absolutely terrible. Not enough penetration with this type of lead. This is a about an 8 or 9 Brunel hardness. It's basically pure lead. Too much expansion, not enough penetration. But that's what you get. You definitely have a different effect going on with the hollow base forward than you do backwards. So let's shoot some paper targets from 25 yards. See what kind of difference there is in accuracy, because I'm really interested in whether that hollow base will affect the accuracy if it's moving forward. Now, traditionally speaking, ballistics wise, a lot of times hollow point ammunition is actually more accurate than full metal jacket because the distribution of the weight is in the back of a hollow point bullet. It goes pretty much the opposite against what you think of accuracy, but traditionally more weight towards the back means a little bit better accuracy. Well, that translates to that in a Wadcutter where the whole front is flat and the aerodynamics is terrible. So let's shoot from 25 yards with traditionally forward and backwards facing and see what we get. All right, this will be interesting. 25 yards from my target. I actually have a piece of sheet metal box set up, 18 gauge steel. So we're going to see what kind of damage it does to 18 gauge steel and what kind of accuracy we're going to get from 25 yards. So I'm going to go single action to get the best accuracy I can from 25 yards. So here we go. Top target with the traditionally seated Wadcutters. Alright, let's try the backwards facing ones. Alright, here's the backwards facing Wadcutters. Alright, gonna go up, take a look. So what we actually got is most of them did not go through this sheet metal. Some of them did, but some of them did not. Looks like accuracy wise, they're both hitting very high point of aim, point of impact, very, very high. Most of the hits with the traditional ones are up here on this rim, a couple down here. And I'm aiming for right here, and we're hitting up here. So very high point of impact with those particular rounds. All right, now let's see how they compare to traditional 38 special rounds from 25 yards. 125 grain total metal jacket bullets. These are traveling at about 930 feet per second out of this 4-inch barrel. So let's see what kind of accuracy damage we get compared to something more traditional, just a full metal jacket round. I'll go for the target on the top. Alright, we have a much tighter group. It's a little bit high, but much tighter with the traditional rounds. And as to be expected, they all went through. No problems with the full metal jacket going through. Alright, let's see what a traditional Wadcutter will do to a solid gallon jug of ice. This is solid ice. It's not partially frozen. It's been out here for 2 weeks. Solid ice. Forward facing Wadcutter from 25 yards. All right, let's see what a backwards loaded Wadcutter will do to solid ice from 25 yards. And here's what we got for the traditional Wadcutter. No exit on it. And for the backwards loaded, quite a bit more damage to the front here. No exit as to be expected. All right, here's the traditional Wadcutter. I've literally spent 15 minutes trying to pull that out, and I cannot pull it out. It kind of baffles the mind. It's stuck there, and even when I hit it with stuff, I cannot free it from the ice. But it's about 4 inches down in there. It doesn't look like it's deformed much. It's hard to tell from this angle. Now the backwards loaded was only down about 2 inches, and here it is. Massive expansion with the backwards facing. Huge. So there's definitely a difference on ice as well. All right, to sum it up, backwards loaded hollow base Wadcutters compared to forward facing. I think we had quite a bit different performance between the two for the same amount of muzzle energy. And I think overall, my opinion from what I'm seeing here is I think that the forward facing Wadcutter performed a little bit better. In fact, I've seen better performance even on that baloney pack than I have on some hollow point ammunition that fails to expand at 38 special velocities. So I think overall the Wadcutter will work. Just a traditional forward facing Wadcutter seems to work really well. The backwards facing was very destructive out in that baloney. Just massive expansion, massive expansion and explosion to the meat, and stopped by the first water jug, which is very impressive, very much impressive. However, that type of penetration would certainly not be enough to hit any vital organs of your average attacker. I think it could, you know, in the right circumstance, but reliably every time, no, I don't think it will. It would have to be loaded a little bit hotter, or you would have to use a little bit harder lead alloy Wadcutter compared to just your regular target Wadcutter. So overall, does it work? Yeah, it works. I wouldn't recommend using it unless you had a specific use in mind. It would certainly work well for critters and stuff like that. For personal protection though, I would say you're probably a little bit better off, in my test anyways, to use the forward-facing traditional Wadcutters the way you buy them from any sporting goods store. So that's what you get today with backwards facing versus forward facing. So as always, comment, share, and like, and thanks for watching.